Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic. What movie death scene is burned into your memory? The death scene in Saving Private Ryan where the knife slowly goes into the guy's chest. It's still hard to watch even now. Yes. I think this one for me also. It's so visceral and horrific even if it isn't as gory as others. Also, the medic is close second. Both of those scenes were wild, but the medic death was intense. Shot in the liver and knew he was going to die. The actor played that so well. The curb stomp in American History X. Oh god, yeah. I haven't watched that movie in many years but I can still hear the sound. I have never actually been able to watch it but I can hear it. I watch gory stuff too, no problem. As soon as the teeth scrape the curb I am done. When Bubba was dying in Forrest Gump. Him saying I wanna go home hit me deep. Even though I know he was acting, I wanted to reach through the screen and hug his fear and pain away. All those young boys dying in the jungle must have been so terrified. Sometimes when people go to Vietnam, they go home to their mamas without any legs. Sometimes they don't go home at all. That's a bad thing. That's all I have to say about that. Seeing Bubba die was horrible. But to hear an otherwise very verbose and upbeat Forrest say that line and just stop ripped me apart. Instead of telling the story he just doesn't want to talk about it. You can just hear the loss in his voice and the devastation. Forrest. Why did this happen? You got shot. Mrs. Ladiam, I miss my boys. Charlie, I never knew you had kids. Mrs. Ladiam, twins. Andrew and Simon. I tried not to, I dressed them differently, but they still did everything together. They went off to medical school together, and then they finished their second year, and of course their lottery number came up at the same time. Charlie, for the draft. Mrs. Ladiam, yeah. Charlie, well, I would have thought they could get a deferment to finish med school. Mrs. Ladiam, they didn't want one. Their father and I begged them, but they wanted to go where people needed doctors. Their father and I begged them, but you can't tell kids anything. So they joined up as medics, and 4 months later they were pinned down during a fight in Da Nang and were killed by enemy fire. That was Christmas Eve, 1970. They were so young, Charlie. They were your age. It's hard when that happens so far away, because with the noises and the shooting, they had to be so scared. It's hard not to think that right then, they needed their mother. Anyway, I miss my boys. Scene, https://u2.be/seekfuserqi. In Silence of the Lambs when Abel gets a hold of the guard in his cage cell and starts biting his face. 9-year-old me was not ready for that, and I was less ready to hear my mom start laughing hysterically at the scene. I guess she just found it absurd. You watched Silence of the Lambs at 9 years old. I think the fact that his mum was laughing explains a lot. Ghost ship. When cable snaps and cuts bunch of people who were happily dancing on deck in half. I watched this as a teen and as soon as I read your comment, I instantly remembered it as vividly as the first time. What is about that scene? I have watched a lot of horror movies, war movies, sad dramas, but there is something about that scene that sticks out. Maybe the nice, serene music, romantic night at sea, people happily dancing. I just can't forget that wire and then bodies falling down. And if I recall correctly, Cube has similar scene with some cable slicing people and few other similar scenes in other movies, but nothing came close to this one. Spock, I have been, and always shall be, your friend. Of all the souls I have encountered in my travels, his was the most human. Artax, in the Everdig story. Completely wrecked 7-year-old me. Artax. Stupid horse. You've gotta move or you'll die. Move, please. I won't give up. Absolutely heartbreaking. Atau begging Artax not to give in was heartbreaking. Brooks's death in Shawshank Redemption, can't get it out of my head. Edit, my first gold, thank you so much. Brooks was here. Just the fact that he was so lost in the world without family or friends at the end of life pierced deep. It has to be the face melting in Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, it was perfect. Would have been the perfect time for a Nivea product placement. When in The Mummy Returns Imhotep realizes what Rick and Evie have is love, and he looks at Akswamu imagining the same, but she just nopes out and he eats himself to the underworld. Also, the man who dies from flesh-eating beetle. Oh, that scarab death was horrifying. When in The Mummy Returns Imhotep realizes what Rick and Evie have is love, and he looks at Akswamu imagining the same, but she just nopes out and he eats himself to the underworld. For real. He literally gave everything to be with that ungrateful hoe, including getting mummified while alive and an eternal curse, and she just dips out at the first sign of trouble. I felt so bad for him. The scene where he stabs the Scorpion King in the stomach and then Imhotep comes in from off-screen and gestures to the Scorpion King while saying ooh absolutely kills me every time. Happens at the 1:41 timestamp. My friends and I like to think the actor was off having lunch and had to sprint back for the scene. John Greenmile. I'm awful tired, boss. The death of Maximus in Gladiator. I will see you again, but not yet. Not yet. Q tears every time. Add to that, is there anything more satisfying than watching Russell Crowe slowly plunge Jackie I. Phoenix's own knife into his throat while he pathetically swats at Crowe with his oversized shoulder pads? Just rewatched this movie and realized Commodus can't extend his arm when Maximus grabs his hand /knife because Maximus sliced his tricep earlier in the fight. Maybe this was obvious, but I always just assumed he was weaker or something lol. Gladiator is one of my best movies. But I always imagined I would have hated it if Commodus hadn't met his demise. It's him walking home through the field with that song playing and his family seeing him. I remember one time drunkenly crying and trying to explain to a friend how moving it is. When Percy executes Dell by using dry sponge in The Green Mile. Percy is just one of the worst characters ever put on paper. What a despicable scumbag from every direction. Every scene with him is him just being a complete psycho. Even among Stephen King books he's easily one of the worst. Funny thing is the actor who played him seems to be equally as scummy. Not a movie, but there was an episode of MASH I saw as a kid that traumatizes me to this day. The whole episode, which I haven't seen since I was about 9, so forgive any incorrect details, is about a group of army and civilians hiding from the enemy. One lady has a chicken, and they keep telling her to keep it quiet because if it gives away their position they'll all be dead. We find out she smothered the chicken to death to save everyone. But the horror twist is that the soldier telling the story had replaced the actual source of the noise. Her human baby. With a chicken because it was so horrible. I have children now and the thought of making that choice makes me sick to my stomach. Pretty sure that was the finale. The most watched non-sports television program of all time. That's the last episode and it was Hawkeye, of course it had to be Hawkeye, who was so traumatized he remembered it as a chicken. I saw that as a teen, on a rerun. To this day, I still can't watch that part. When Hawkeye comes to grips that it wasn't a chicken she had smothered her baby to save everyone on the bus, the look on his face is just haunted. Goodbye, farewell, and amen. The series finale. https://www.youtube.com. Poor Hawkeye. The scenes where he is talking to Sydney, the army psychiatrist and one of my favorite characters of the whole show, are hard to watch. He was just doing his job the best he could and will have to live with that trauma forever. They have a joke about it in 30 Rock with Alan Alda. A crying man and a chicken. I thought this was supposed to be a comedy show. The Mist, that ending still gets me to this day. For real. Imagine you thought you gave your child and your other survivors a mercy killing, but learned you were minutes away from rescue. Fucked up shit. Edit. First of all, this movie came out in 2007, you had 14 years to see it. Secondly, as someone pointed out, this thread is about deaths in movies. You only have yourself to blame. Also, the army comes up from behind them, meaning they were driving away from salvation the whole time too. Hereditary, where Charlie got decapitated by the telephone pole. Scrolled for this one, the mother scream will always stick with me. And then the cut to the head on the pavement. Everyone talks about this scene when they mention Hereditary and I 100% agree that it's harrowing. But that scene where Toni Collette's headless corpse floats into the treehouse was so visually disturbing to me, I couldn't stop thinking about it for weeks. Her swimming through his doorway is half fucked up and half kinda funny when I watch it. But if I'm ever in the dark and I think about that shot, absolutely terrifying. My brother, my captain, my king. They will watch for us coming in the White Tower, but you will not return. Lament for Boromir. Aragorn sang. Through Rohan over fen and field where the long grass grows. The west wind comes walking, and about the walls it goes. What news from the west, O wandering wind, do you bring to me tonight? Have you seen Boromir the tall by moon or by starlight? I saw him ride over 7 streams, over waters white and grey. I saw him walk in empty lands until he passed away. Into the shadows of the north, I saw him then no more. The north wind may have heard the horn of the son of Dethor. O Boromir! From the high walls westward I looked afar. But you came not from the empty lands where no men are. Then Legolas sang. From the mouths of the sea the south wind flies, from the sard hills and the stones. The wailing of the gulls it bears, and at the gate it moans. What news from the south, O sighing wind, do you bring to me at eve? Where now is Boromir the fair? He tarries and I grieve. Ask not of me where he doth dwell, so many bones there lie. On the white shores and the dark shores under the stormy sky. So many have passed down a dewy to find the flowing sea. Ask of the north wind news of them, the north wind sends to me. O Boromir! Beyond the gate the seaward road runs south. But you came not with the wailing gulls from the grey sea's mouth. Then Aragorn sang again. From the gate of the kings the north wind rides, and past the roaring falls. And clear and cold about the tower its loud horn calls. What news from the north, O mighty wind, do you bring to me today? What news of Boromir the bold? For he is long away. Beneath Amorn Hen I heard his cry. There many foes he fought. His cloven shield, his broken sword, they to the water brought. His head so proud, his face so fair, his limbs they laid to rest. And Rieros, golden Rieros falls, bore him upon its breast. O Boromir! The Tower of God shall ever northward gaze. To Rieros, golden Rieros falls, until the end of days.